Hello and welcome to Home Life for Extraordinary Impact. My name is Matt Barrios. I'm a husband, dad, researcher, writer, and coach. And on Home Life for Extraordinary Impact, I'm interviewing experts and everyday people all around the world about their homes. I'm asking them basically a bunch of questions going after one big question, which is how do you set up your life at home in order for it to be a place of consistent growth, regular connection, and ongoing increasing impact in the world all around you. That's what we're up to on this, and I get to interview lots and lots of interesting people today, and even in just like this very brief interaction before I hit record on this episode, I already know I'm going to have a great conversation with our guest today. Her name is Diaz. She is calling in from Illinois right now. And I'm just so excited to have you on as a person who, we connected online and everything, but you can,
yes,
bring a bunch of very unique angles on home. Everything from a deep background in real estate, as well as some unfortunate expertise in narcissistic relationships.
Right.
And we're going to get deep into, that topic and any other that we might find ourselves into. But to start off, I just want to ask you, Dana, what are some of the things that you do at home that help you set up for a kind of happy and effective, productive life kind of out in the world?
Fair enough. I'm a very structured person myself, just because I have a lot of different things that I am involved in, and my husband's the same way. So my number one rule in life that I have instilled in my son from the time he could even understand it was be prepared. That is like life 101, be prepared. So in the morning, nothing comes before coffee, nothing at all. Then after the cats eat and get water, then it's just knowing what the plan is for the day, where everyone's going, what everyone's doing, making a list, if there is a need for that, and just going at it, prioritizing and checking things off. So I think that's the most important thing, just because everybody's going in different directions. And that start of the day, if there's one little thing off, like you wake up on the wrong side of the bed, it just throws everything off. And we all hate those days. We don't want those days.
Absolutely. Gosh, seriously. I love that you start with coffee. I start with coffee. It is really the elixir that, helps set up
Yes.
for a decent day. If not that, then boy, oh boy, would I be in tons and tons of trouble. Are you like a kind of give me coffee any sort, I'm fine? Are you an aficionado? Where are you in the whole coffee spectrum?
No. I am, I was raised by my great grandma who's from Puerto Rico, so it's got to be dark roast, and it's got to, they always say that the coffee I make puts hair on your chest, so it's got to be that kind of coffee. I do put creamer in, though. I like the caramel sweetener and a little sugar.
Okay.
My husband says it's foofy, but it's still effective. I get the sugar, I get the caffeine, and after about 15 minutes, you can approach me, and I'm personable and alive, so it works.
I love it. The kind of coffee that you can put the stirring spoon in and it'll stand up in. That's how thick it is.
Yes. And if it has foam, I love when I go to Starbucks and they ask for, do you want whipped cream and caramel? And yes.
All
please,
of it.
all of it.
So good.
But the coffee, I got to have that double shot of espresso in it. It's got to be strong.
Okay. Well, sounds delicious. I literally just had my afternoon coffee just now, and it was a little stovetop, espresso maker thing, and poured it over ice. It was perfect.
Those are amazing, though.
It's so delicious. So just hitting the spot. That's
is.
why I'm bringing a little extra energy to this episode, I think. And also because you're bringing it too. So I'm just feeling it. We're vibing. Okay, so Dana, you have a background in real estate and also this the stuff around narcissistic relationships. And one of the things that we're exploring is, really home on every level, every dimension. One of those, some of that has to do with real estate and, the home that you buy or that you rent or whatever. But another part is the relationships in the home that help it feel like home, help it feel like it's safe or it's not safe, all of that. So would you tell me a little bit about your background with those things?
Absolutely. Well, you mentioned the narcissistic abuse, so we'll start very briefly with that. I was raised by a narcissist that my mother enabled. It was her husband, not my biological father. And then I was so eager to get out of the house at 18 and get out of the abusive situation that I jumped right into what I thought was, relationship with Prince Charming. And unfortunately, that was another 25-year narcissistic relationship that I actually just published a book on, covering that whole 25-year spectrum. And I'm actually in the process right now of publishing the prequel, which discusses my earlier years with my mother and stepfather. But, the funny thing is when you say home, you were mentioning like feeling safe and feeling protected. The thing about it is that, like, I look at my husband, his family has like a home base. Dad's home is where everybody goes, even though they're in their 50s and 60s. Mm-hmm. That's home, and they feel good there, and they're welcome there, and there's love, and everybody unites there. And that's what family should be, and that's what home should be. But it's not that way for all of us. And that's the unfortunate thing, is that I'm 47 years old, and I can honestly say I've never lived anywhere in my life. And I have moved, I think I counted 16 or 17 times I've moved in my life. There's not one single place that I can say is like home or that I feel any sentimental feelings about. So for me, home is more where my heart feels, as you said, safe and protected. Mm-hmm. And I cannot, it's funny that you say that too, because I'm newly married. My husband and I will be celebrating our second anniversary next month, in a couple weeks, actually. Yeah, we're going to Punta Cana. Very excited. But the thing about it is, wherever he is home. And it doesn't matter where it is. But I have moved into his home that he built with his ex-wife, which I think is common now these days when you're in a second, and I know people have been in a third marriage now, but you move into one of the spouse's homes that they shared with a previous spouse. And the strange thing is that I'm actually starting to feel that feeling that I've never felt, because this is the first place I've lived in my life where I 100% feel safe. And I know that my husband would not let anyone touch a hair on my head. His son, who lives with us, same thing. I feel good here. I feel happy. I just feel at peace. And so it's starting to feel like home, even though it's not a home that I participated in creating or designing or building or even decorating. Although, when you meet your match, your tastes align, because the things that I brought with me here just fit perfectly. Wow. It's like everything just meshed, just like we did. So yes, it's wonderful.
That's great.
But as far as real estate, the interesting thing to bring all of that together, I started in real estate in 1995. I started leasing apartments. I went into condos. I did corporate leasing for apartments for people coming in from out of state and out of the country. I now do residential real estate. So it's just really interesting to see how people choose their homes and what they do. I always try to keep in touch with my customers, because I just tend to become friends with them, most of them. I don't like all of them, but most of them.
Sure, yeah.
But I keep in touch, and I want to see what they do with the houses that they buy, if they're remodeling, or even if it's just new furniture or the landscaping. But what's interesting to me, and what I've learned over the years, is that when you take that initial call, or you go out with them the first or second time showing them houses, most realtors will say, "Oh, what are you looking for?" And you get the typical, "Oh, 3-bedroom, at least 2-bathroom, the statistics." And I tell people, I don't want to hear any of that baloney, because I have sold 2-bedroom houses to people say that they have to have a 4-bedroom. I've sold people a 1-car garage when they said they needed a 3-car garage. That's all baloney. Yeah. I tell people, what is the one thing that you have to have, and you will not buy a house or a condo or whatever unless it has this thing, whatever it is. And it's interesting. Twice in my life, I've actually sold 2 separate residences to married couples. And one of them had been married probably 30 or 40 years. They bought 2 different condos in 2 different buildings, loved each other, but couldn't live together. So it's interesting when you say, what is home? It's different for everybody.
Yeah.
It's completely different. And just seeing people bicker when they're looking at homes where one spouse or partner loves a home and the other just isn't feeling it, I just tell them, unless you all want to have this conflict the rest of your days, we are going to keep looking. Because you both have to be a yes. You cannot be a yes and a no. And I don't believe in maybe. Maybe is talking yourself into it or having the other person convince you, and that's not home. You have to walk in and know it's home.
Wow.
You have to feel it.
I think what you're seeing is the connection that I've like really, really clearly intuited in this process is like how much relational dynamics play into a place feeling like home, including even the process of choosing a home if you're on the market for a new place to rent or buy or something like that. If there's some level of relational discord at the foundation there, it's hard for that place to end up feeling like a real sanctuary, safe, restorative, all of that kind of place to live. And now I'm very curious to explore that now from the other angle too, that in your backstory of like narcissistic relationships, it seems like you probably had to learn so much how to navigate very complex relational dynamics, and
yes,
and it probably is what makes you so good at mediating these moments with these people as they're searching for a home. But like, tell me more about like what were the relational dynamics that you had to navigate at home?
Well, I mean, in my childhood, it was mainly avoidance because there was a lot of physical with the verbal abuse. So I just hid in my room. But if there was ever a place for 18 years that I felt okay, I mean, if I felt any anxiety or any inclination that something was going to happen, if there was a conflict, I went in my room, shut the door. And I think that's typical of a lot of teenagers, over the generations. But for me, it was especially so. And it's just where I hid, so to speak. And I didn't necessarily feel safe in the house, but that was just my space where I knew I was okay. And sometimes I wasn't. There were times where my stepfather, I'll never forget, once I heard tinkering in the door, and he had actually taken it off its hinges in the hallway, broken the knob off, and literally removed the door. And for me, it was just... It was not just such a violation, but it just, I felt so vulnerable, and rightfully so, because nothing nice happened after that. But, then in my marriage, 25 years, the last home that I lived in prior to this, that's where I raised my son with my ex-husband. We were there 17 years. You would have thought I would have felt at home eventually. But the interesting thing about it, it was a little farmette on 4 acres, and there was a main house, and then there was a little in-law house that the previous owners had built. So it's kind of ironic that we both actually liked the property, but we also... I hate to say it. I discuss it in my book that I wrote, but I mean, we both kind of knew we were like oil and water. We just never mixed, but I think we just, we had a kid and we thought, well, we're just going to stick together. But the idea of having 2 houses was very appealing. And in the end, the last couple of years on the property, he moved into that in-law house, and I was in the main house with my son. So it worked that my son could have 2 parents. Even after the divorce, my ex-husband stayed on the property, but that's what my son wanted. And so it's a strange dynamic, but I know I'm not the only person out there that has agreed to a situation, because you want to do what's best for your kids. It ended up not being best for anybody, but that's besides the point. But it was a good setup for the situation we had.
Mm-hmm. Gosh, yeah.
Just like my couples that have lived in 2 separate places. I mean, you do what you have to do if for whatever reason you're keeping the family unit together. You figure out a way to make it work in your living situation.
Wow. Gosh, that is very interesting, complex things. And also just want to acknowledge and thank you for sharing vulnerably about, very traumatic, and abusive things that have happened in your history. And I'm so sorry that has happened to you. I'm thankful that you are telling the story of that, because I think it creates a clearing for others to be upfront and open and find connection with people like yourself. And I hope people who are in similar situations certainly go check out your book as a place to find, the empathy and connection and stories that resonate. So thank you very much for sharing about that. Yeah, so Dana, this is a little bit of a change in direction, but when you're thinking about home and it's going really, really well, what are some of the things that are markers of home going well for you?
I think I go back to relationships all the time. I think if all the relationship dynamics in a home are going well, then home life is good. Because when there's tension, as you know, with my growing up and then my previous marriage, there were days, honestly, that I became kind of a workaholic in my adult life because I didn't want to go home. I dreaded going home. It was not a place I wanted to be. I would rather work than go home. And that sucks. Nobody wants that. So, you always want to, especially if you have kids, but, even for your spouse, they say happy wife, happy life, but it goes the same way for husbands and for your adult children, your little kids. Everyone wants to be happy. Everyone wants to feel good. And you want everybody to actually want to come home at the end of their day, so you make it that way. So how do you do it? It's kind of like when I'm out looking at, showing homes to people. It's different for everybody. You ask a kindergartner, like my husband's grandson, he probably wants chocolate chip cookies, coming out of the oven, fresh baked when he gets home. That's going to make a happy home life. For my husband, I know he really enjoys that when he wakes up in the morning, I have his coffee made, laundry's done, everything's good so he can be prepared for his day. And, just keeping, we don't have much conflict around here. I can't even say we have any, thank God. But, I know that's a big thing that in what I call my previous life, I made the mistake of saying past life in a previous podcast.
Sure.
And I think some people think I actually was talking about a former life, and I'm not. But in my old life, I was always concerned about my son. Like, I didn't want him to feel whatever tension was between me and his dad. And, you try to protect your kids from that at any age, but they're going to feel it. So it's just really important to just kind of do whatever you can to make the energy, so to speak, in the house, just keep it lighter and more positive. I love when we can just sit around and watch like ridiculousness or something on MTV, and all of us laugh, at no matter what age or, whatever it is. Just sitting down to dinner is like a huge thing for me because I didn't get that growing up. So if we can all actually be in the same place at the same time and I can cook, it's amazing. But I think you need to have those interactions in order to have a family bond or any kind of relationship bond. And that's what's good. It doesn't matter where you live. You can make it a home if everything feels good between the people.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so much of the quality of life at home rides on how well relationships are going with people. Are people happy? Is there tension? Have you cleared the air on that stuff that comes up? All of these sorts of things. And
yes.
I like that you're tying that to really tactical things that help make it happen. You are attentive to what is going to help your husband be happy, right? And
exactly.
Ideally, everybody's thinking about that for everybody that they're living with, right? And is some way
ideally,
right?
Yeah. But you know what? That's the way life is, because if you start off your day well at home or things are going good at home, you carry that into the world. We've all had days, no matter who you are, what age you are, where you just are not having a good morning, or maybe somebody at home ticked you off or whatever it is, and then you go to work and you're pissed off at work, or you have a cranky ass kid going to school.
Exactly.
We've all been there, and it just spirals downhill, and nobody wants that. And at the risk of sounding like an idealistic hippie, yes, you have some love and joy at home, then it goes out in the world and you just spread it like dominoes. You just keep the love flowing. It makes for a nice world.
Call me an idealistic hippie, because that's exactly what I'm trying to do in this project. Because I really do think that the foundation of a good world is people having
Yes.
solid homes where they feel a sense of love and belonging and joy, and then they
Yes.
get to take that into the workplace and take that into their social lives and so on. So, sign me up for Idealistic Hippie for Home club. So yeah, I'm a big believer in
Yes.
that sort of stuff. Now, what you also mentioned is that like sometimes like it takes starting off on the right foot in the mornings. We already mentioned your coffee stuff, but what does starting off on the right foot look like for you?
Again, I go back to just being prepared. I'm a very type A person, so it's the coffee. I start my coffee because I need it first because I'm the first one up and in the kitchen. Then I start my husband's coffee. Like I said, feed the cats, get them out of my hair. Then they want to go outside. That's fine. But just making sure, like I said, I'll pull the laundry out, fold it if I need to, get my list done for like, this is the plan for the day. These are our appointments. You're going that way. I'm going this way. The kids are going wherever. Okay, this is our plan. Anything else anybody needs, let me know. And then you just kind of go on with the day. Get everyone off to where they're going. I need to get off to where I'm going. And we move on. But, it's all about prioritizing. And as you said, again, the consideration for everyone in the home. I think people really, don't get me started on social media. I know we're all on it and it's wonderful. But, we do have a lot of people right now that forget that there's people and life outside of themselves and the bubble that they live in, and you have to kind of think about the other people. It's not just me. I mean, we all wish it was, but then again, do we really? So I think it's just a matter of being considerate. If somebody in the house has, a really important, we all know, okay, tomorrow's really important. They have a meeting or something going on, whatever. It's like, okay, we're not going to hang out outside by the fire pit having beers all night with our friends, or, you know what I mean? We're going to respect that and make sure that person, do you need anything? Do you need, just, there are those nights that, maybe we went out to a wedding and had a little, it's like, okay, here, have some ibuprofen before bed, drink your water. Here's a bottle of water for everybody. I'm that person that tries to just make sure because I want everyone to be okay. But I get that back too, They're all very good around here. We just have a really good vibe here. Like my husband, like now that it's nicer out because we're in Illinois and we get like all different seasons in 1 week, but it's June, so it's hotter out and the sun is shining, so like we have a creek in the back of the property and he mowed me like a little path so that when I need a break from phone and work and everything going on, I just go take a walk. I have like a private river walk. I don't have to worry about neighbors coming. I'm not antisocial, I swear to God. But, sometimes you don't want to chat with your neighbors and you don't want people to see what you look like because you haven't really done all this, So it's nice to have that. But then like yesterday, like I knew he was really busy. So like our garage was a mess. I went out there. I had an extra hour to do something. I cleaned out the garage and swept it for him. So it's just the give and take. And I think, again, I go to, this isn't just home, this is life. But if you do that for the people you live with, you take care of them, they take care of you. The give and take is what you need to have, a good relationship with anybody, whether it's home or work or wherever.
Absolutely. And it's interesting that you say that because I think for so many people, especially when we're thinking about raising children and stuff, we've got a 1.5-year-old here in our little apartment in San Francisco. And I'm very much like mindful of the fact that me and my wife are setting the tone for what her life is going to be like and what kind of relational pattern she's going to have. And even like, put it in business language, the soft skills that she'll come to the table with when it comes to empathy and communication and so on, right? Like that sort of stuff so much grows out of home and family and social life, like these things that don't happen, in the same way at school or at the office, right? It's a whole different thing to be immersed in it from a young age. Another thing I want to jump on that you mentioned that I thought was really interesting is how much you almost like in that morning, getting it all started, you seem like a quarterback calling plays. You're like, okay, here's what we got going. You're like, okay, here's what we got for the day. Let me give us our list.
I'm like, where are you going? What are you doing? What time are you going to be home? Are you eating dinner at home tonight? Oh, you're going to your grandma's. Okay. Like, I just want to know like the logistics, because I'm that type A, and I just want to know. I need to know what to expect and what I'm doing, because am I feeding one person a night or am I feeding 4? I have no idea.
Right.
Makes a difference.
Right.
And I'm not going to stress about it. If it's one person and it's me, I'll just have a bowl of cereal. I don't care. But, if there's 4 of them and they're coming for dinner, it's like, okay, well, I better pull some meat out in the morning so it thaws and all that good stuff.
Yeah. I would love, you're the first person who's like self-identified as a type A personality, as I'm interviewing people. What does it look like for you to like intentionally manage your home? Because I hear that's like exactly what you're doing. Do you have any like bits of advice, or like, here's like tactically what I recommend people to do in order to manage the logistics of home? Does anything come to mind?
Honestly, it's prioritizing. I think that's the most important thing, is just prioritizing. I mean, there's so many other aspects I can go into with that, knowing the different personalities in your home and knowing where they fall short on something and you need to pick up a little. And certainly there's things I fall short on sometimes, that I need a little pick up on, but it's just the prioritizing. I mean, as type A as I am, I mean, my go-to if I'm in a real jam is like, okay, if it's not life or death, just like it's okay. And I joke, although I mean no disrespect to anybody, but even if there ever was a death situation, I can't revive anybody. I can't bring them back. So there's really nothing I can do. But you just do what you can to just say, like, these are the most important things. And even for myself personally, I can say, like, if I don't have my coffee and if I don't exercise first thing in the morning, like, my whole day is wrecked. Because then I'm panicking. Because I have like a lot of muscular and medical issues that it's just really, really important for me to get some exercise in. So it just throws me off. And then it's kind of like that waking up on the wrong side of the bed. But we all have whatever that thing is, and maybe some people don't, and good for them. But, for the rest of us, we need to be aware of it. And I try to be aware of everybody's. And part of that, the sad thing is that part of that comes from this narcissistic abuse that I experienced pretty much my whole life up until now. Because when you are in situations that you can't even control your safety and you can't control your security and the way people are talking to you and all these terrible things, you almost try, like, I'm going to speak for myself, but I know this is true with a lot of abuse victims. We almost become controlling in a way that is not meant to be bossy or bad, but to kind of control those things that we want to control our environment so that we know it's safe. We want to control situations so that we don't feel that anxiety. So I've been told I'm a know-it-all and I'm bossy, and I accept it. It's fine. But really that's where it comes from, is, the background. But, I try to do it in a nice way. Sometimes I'm a little too direct for some people, including my husband, but they all know that I mean well. So, but you are who you are, and like you said, it starts at home. When you're a kid, you just develop certain personality traits as a result of what you've lived. So as long as you're not a malicious person that has malicious intent, try to be self-aware and go with it. But it makes me a good manager of everything.
I believe it. I completely believe it. I'm just like, and this is really about this is a redemption story. In your story is the fact that, like, maybe that's the soil you were growing out of. But after transplanting, now you're just kind of like actually a master manager who's really good at risk assessing and making sure that the pieces are covered and, staying on top of stuff, which some of it might be fueled by a little bit of what you're describing, this fear of things being unpredictable things happening, right? And the anxiety there.
Yes, exactly.
But yeah, I think it's like, so long as you can work with it rather than have it work against you, that seems like it's really helpful. Yeah. And I imagine
sometimes bad things can be good things.
Yeah. And it doesn't make everything good, but it does seem, I definitely see that connection there, as you're describing it, of those hard times transform something in you that is now a little bit of the value you bring to the world. So that's pretty cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we've got to cover some really fun, interesting ground here. Everything from your background in real estate, some of your experience of the trauma of growing up, and now your expertise as a home manager. I'm really curious too if you have any thoughts on your possessions. Like, for example, do you have any prized possessions, things that you really love?
That's funny you say that because, again, I go back to how I grew up and my history, and I've always felt more like an orphan. I don't really have anything as far as like my home life that I would have to grab if I was running out of the house if there was a fire. Pictures stay in my memory, memories stay in your heart, honestly, the one thing when you ask me that comes, it's actually two things. One is my wedding ring. I don't know if anyone could really see it. It's a heart shape. I've been obsessed with hearts since literally I think when I could walk and talk, I'm obsessed with hearts. If I see a heart on a shirt, on a sign, on jewelry, on a headband, whatever, I just love hearts. And so my husband, when he proposed, he had this beautiful diamond heart. And it's just I look at it and it reminds me that despite everything that I've been through, he's my home, and that there's still love in the world, and that despite what I was told for my whole life, I am lovable and I am valuable and I am worthy. But the other thing tied to that, I don't know if you could see this, is a bracelet my husband gave me. You could see it a little better there. It's the Tree of Life. That was one of the first gifts he ever gave me, because I don't have a relationship with my mother and stepfather. A lot of family went with that. But he gave me this, and he said this is to show me that I have family roots with him, and here in his home with him. So to me, those are my things, but they're on my personal body. So if I ever had to run out of the house in a fire, God forbid, they're on me. I don't have to grab them and run. I'd probably run and grab the cats if I could, but they'd probably be long gone, because it's like every man for himself when it comes to cats. They don't care.
Seriously.
They'd be down the street. They'd be like, yeah, you're good.
It's like, we're all out for ourselves out here, so you all take care of yourself. I love that, when you think about prized possessions, again, it comes back to relationships. And it sounds like you're just a very relational person who really, really cares about, love and connection with people as much as you need your alone time and your private walks by the creek. When you know that you are treasured by your husband and what that represents to you, it represents a very, just a high value for love and connection. And I think that's a beautiful thing.
It's beautiful. It's just sad that most people have it. Most people are brought into the world. And I always struggled with the issues with my mother, because everybody's mother loves them. Even serial killers have mothers who love them and sit behind them in court after they've murdered and done all these things. And it's like, gosh, my mother just can't. And it's okay. It's taken a long time, but it makes me value when I see, my sister with her son. I look at the pictures of them and just, I love seeing people love their children, and I love seeing husbands and wives or partners of whatever, gender love each other. And again, I sound like a hippie, but love can make a lot of things right that are wrong in the world. So, you know, all you need is love. It's a good Beatles song.
It is a good Beatles song. And that romantic heart, it makes sense that, like, you know, especially coming from a place where you didn't get a lot of that, you know, deep and intimate connection, that home really would come in the form of a person, and that deep, intimate connection that you now have with your husband. I'm so glad that you found that. And I think it's really important to note that, like, it took quite a while for you to find that. But I'm very, very glad that you stuck it through and got there. That's really wonderful and an important story to tell.
Well, thank you.
Well,
and hopefully other people can relate.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure plenty of people can. So, you know, as we're kind of in some closing motions, like, you know, as if I'm going to land the plane, right? Everybody put your seatbelts back on. Are there any, like, suggestions, tips, you know, in light of having this conversation, our reflections, your preparation for this conversation, everything, any suggestions that you'd give to people listening for how they can help improve their quality of life at home?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to go back to my alter ego as a realtor. You know, when you're looking at a home or trying to figure out how to live in the home that you're in, just be realistic about what everybody needs. You know, a teenager does not want a bedroom right next to their parents, you know, so you get those split options where the master's on one side of the house, or on the main floor, and the other bedrooms are separate, or sometimes you can convert, you know, lower levels or basements into a living area for, you know, the aunt or the grandma or whoever, you know, lives in the house as well. But, you know, just being realistic about everybody's needs, because I think if everybody has their basic needs met, you know, everybody will find some happiness with, you know, whatever they're, you know, required to live in at whoever's choice. So, you know, it's just a matter of knowing what you want. You know, my son just bought his first house. He's going to close in a couple weeks, and he absolutely didn't want to be in town because he's a country boy. He's used to having a barn and everything. And God help us, we found something. It's a fixer-upper in his price range, but we found something, you know, but you have to you have to compensate in some way. But just be aware of what is really important to you and what you need to be happy, and just make it work. Figure it out.
That's so good. And, you know, whether that's a person searching for a new home or trying to make life more livable in the home that they're already in, it's important to be realistic about the needs of everybody who's living there. I love that tip.
Yes.
Now, Dana, I know you mentioned that you have written a book and you're working on another and everything, but what are the sort of things that you're working on, and how can people get in touch with you to hear more about what you're up to?
Absolutely. Well, I have a website, www.danasdiaz.com. That's DANASDIAZ.com. My book that I just released is called Gasping for Air, The Stranglehold of Narcissistic Abuse, and that discusses a lot of my 25-year former relationship with my ex-husband, and I will be, probably by the end of this year, we have already written, we're going through the process now of the second book, which will cover my childhood. It's sort of a prequel, and I am in the process, with everything else going on, of writing the third book in this trilogy of a series of narcissistic abuse, about after, you know, kind of going up to present times, because unfortunately my husband and I encountered another narcissist. I swear I'm a magnet. It's my purpose in life, apparently, to, you know, create this awareness. So they keep coming. But yes, you can go on my website. My book is available Amazon. You can get the ebook, get the print book. I have done some book signings and will continue to be on a little book tour, doing that the rest of this summer and probably through the rest of this year as the other books come out. But definitely Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I'm everywhere. Just look for Dana S. Diaz.
All right, awesome. I'm going to, you know, grab all those links that you mentioned and all the accounts, and I will
Wonderful.
Put it in a companion blog post along with this episode. So everybody, if you want to get connected to Dana, just take a look in the show notes. You'll find a blog post for ways to get connected with her. So hope you've enjoyed listening to this episode. I hope it served you. This has been Home Life for Extraordinary Impact, which is under my larger project, Home Life Design Lab. Through that project, I'm on a mission to help 100 million people transform their quality of life at home. It's a big, audacious goal because what else am I going to spend my life on, you know? So the goal with that is to help people live lives of really meaningful connection with the people that they live with, as Dana so beautifully showed, even the redemption story possibilities for how that plays out in life, born out of difficulty and perhaps finding a partnership. We'll talk about that kind of stuff. We'll talk about other things like interior design and architecture, layers to life like home routines and so on. If this strikes your fancy, go to homelifedesignlab.com, sign up for the newsletter there, check out workshops, and also subscribe to this podcast. Rate it, subscribe it, because it's still relatively new and I'd love to help it get some traction. So thank you very much for listening. And until next time, everybody, bye. Thanks for listening to Home Life for Extraordinary Impact. I hope you enjoyed listening as much as I enjoyed putting it together for you. Please take a moment to rate it, like it, and subscribe wherever you have listened or watched. If you really loved it, check the link in the show notes to become a premium subscriber to support the ongoing work of this project and to unlock some exclusive premium episodes. Home Life for Extraordinary Impact is a project of Home Life Design Lab. Find out more at homelifedesignlab.com, where you can sign up for the newsletter and follow along on Instagram and TikTok. Thanks.